On your Wednesday episode of Locked On Raptors, the one thing the Raptors can't really afford is a Scottie Barnes injury. Welp.
You are Locked On Raptors, your daily Toronto Raptors podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what's going on? And welcome to another episode of Locked On Raptors, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. It is Wednesday, October the 30th, and I'm your host, Sean Woodley. I've been covering the Toronto Raptors now for 11 seasons on various platforms. You can follow my work over on the bad website that sucks at Woodley Sean. You can find the show on Instagram at Locked On Raptors, and you can join us, of course, in the Locked On Raptors Discord server, free to do. Link in the description of the podcast. We'd love to see you become part of our little community of sickos over there. You can also go and subscribe to the free Locked On Raptors daily newsletter. Link also in the description, also free to do. You get original writing from me 5 days a week. You also get original writing from the person on the screen with me 4 times a week, which is very exciting times. So please go support. It's a lovely thing to go and get that newsletter to your inbox every single day. The best email you'll get all day. Emails are bad these days. This one is good. All right. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. Down the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDON for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, download the Game Time app today. What time is it? It's game time. And with that, Katie, let's get to it. Katie Heindl is here from Basketball Feelings, from the Locked On Raptors and Locked On NBA family of newsletters, the national editor for us over there, which is very rad, making your first appearance on the pod since a long vacation to Italy. First time since this has all been announced. It's very exciting. Katie, how are you?
I'm good, but the most exciting thing to me is this purple skin that you've set up.
Right?
This is so cool. Of everything that you said, I'm like, wow, so purple.
It is so purple. If the team's not going to go all in earnest, I sure as hell will.
Good.
That's kind of how I've been framing it. So Katie, welcome back. It's lovely to have you back on the show. Some stuff has happened since you last were with us. You know, the whole preseason basically happened. The Raptors are 1-3, though a spirited, plucky 1-3 with plenty of stuff to glom onto if you're looking for silver linings and excitement. However, some bad news yesterday. Scottie Barnes will be out for tonight's game against the Charlotte Hornets. We're going to talk about his injury and what it means and why it sucks. We're also going to get into Ochai Agbaji, who had his option for next season picked up by the Raptors yesterday. We'll close things off with some early impressions of the team. But Scottie Barnes, Katie, takes that errant elbow from Nikola Jokic in a board battle on Monday night, goes down in a lot of discomfort, does not look in good shape as he walks off the floor. We get news yesterday. He's out for the game, not traveling to Charlotte with the team tonight, and he's having medical assessments aplenty, I suppose, is what the deal is. Not ideal, obviously, after a pretty encouraging last few games for Scottie Barnes as the leading man for this team, still operating within a difficult team context without the full complement of guys available. And obviously, this season is very much about figuring out what Scottie Barnes at the helm looks like and how the guys fit around him. It's been fits and starts. He's been the victim of really crappy injury luck in 2 of the last 5 NBA games he's played. You get the Jokic elbow Monday. You get him breaking his hand on the mesh of the basket back in that game against the Warriors in early March, I believe it was. This sucks, Katie. Usually I'm the man with silver linings and, positive spins. I got nothing on this one. Do you?
No, it's hard to have a silver lining with a broken face potentially, right? So
Yeah.
I think, in basic terms, what's going to bode worse is I think if it's an eye thing, like, is there clarity yet? This is just me. This is me straight up admitting to jet lag and really catching up on the NBA at weird times. But is there clarity on where this elbow was targeted? I mean, it's a giant elbow, so.
There is not. Ali
Okay.
Rindelli is a great follow for anyone who wants like injury updates. She's a Toronto person, covers the Raptors, a doctor. And her sort of evaluation of yesterday on the bad website was, concerned for an orbital bone issue. It
Mm-hmm.
can be anything from if it's like a non-displaced fracture that doesn't take surgery, if it's just like a regular fracture, return this weekend could be in the cards. If there needs to be surgery to repair it, that could be a 3 to 4 week thing. Obviously a whole lot of discomfort. We're not sure, again, for eye damage, if there's anything there, ruptures, etc. All the kinds of words you don't want to hear associated with that little jelly thing that makes you see good. And so, yeah, it's still kind of a waiting game here. It's tough to draw any conclusions. You hope for the best and prepare for the worst, I suppose.
Yeah, when I hear orbital, I do think right away of Joel Embiid, who's had quite a few orbital fractures. So, I mean, something like this, the good thing was like he's up and walking around, and if he's just staying for assessment, I think that's just playing it safe. There's no reason why he has to be on the road with the team. Like really at this point in the season, I think it's better to just like, if this is supposed to be Scottie's season, then it's better to play it safe, obviously, and get him the like assessments that he needs. I don't think, I know like maybe this is too optimistic, but like I don't think it has to
please lay it on me.
Derail things too deeply, because again, it's so early. And you mentioned, the team is they're a plucky 1-3, but like there's worse. I look around the league and there's much worse like 1-3s or even better faring teams that seem a little bit in dire straits, Nuggets being one of them. Where there's something that feels off and bad, and it doesn't feel like that with the Raptors at all through these first few games. They've put up really good contests, and I do think something like this, you've got to hope that with such a long and deep roster that Darko Rakovic wants to give minutes and experience and play to, this does open the floor up for that.
Definitely, right? Look, you found a silver lining, Katie. You're doing the Lord's work over
here.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I'll have a little bit more on this in the newsletter later today, but I do think, there's still going to be good stuff that's happening in these games, right? You're going to have Jamal Shed, Jonathan Mobo, Jamison Battle, the rookies who have been really fun and really encouraging early on. They're going to get time. They're probably going to get more time now. In fact, if I'm kind of thinking about who starts in place of Scottie Barnes, it could be that they go with like Mitchell, Agbaji, Grady Dick, RJ Barrett as the 1 through 4 and just go really small and have Yak be the 5. That's possible. They could also just like, all right, Jamison Battle, you're like 6'8", you shoot threes. Why don't you go out there and just kind of be a spacing agent for this team and get starts? Like there will be that fun rookie stuff to latch onto for sure. I think it's still possible to continue to see the blossoming of Ochai Agbaji into a nice rotation player. I don't think that is necessarily all that affected here. Without Emmanuel quickly, I do think the offense stands a chance of being real bad until Scottie Barnes comes back or until quickly can get back in the lineup, hopefully soon here. Just not a ton of creation. We saw it down the stretch against the Nuggets. Like it was a slog to get into their possessions and get stuff going. And that's what happens when the guy who was the center of gravity for your offense and Scottie Barnes is not there. And they don't have an easy replacement for that, right? He is the best player on the team for a reason. And I think, as much as you can kind of moonlight backup point guard play and, find guys to fill in for RJ Barrett who can occupy a similar niche, maybe just less effectively at lower volume, it's harder to find a guy who can do what Scottie Barnes does because he is everything for what they want to do. And his stat lines over the last few games, kind of tell the story of that. I don't think we're going to see, without Scottie Barnes, we're not going to see spirited contests against good teams as much as maybe they're capable of when he's available. There will still be good stuff, but the sort of racking up of losses leading to an early shoot pulling and a tumble up the lottery standings certainly feels a little more likely if Scottie's going to miss some time here, but hopefully it's not. Maybe we're spiraling needlessly early on here and he's able to get back in the lineup sooner rather than later. And to me, Katie, I think for me, the biggest thing is if he misses time, this is just valuable information gathering time for Scottie, right? Like we are so early in the Scottie has the keys of the team era. It seems like it's been ages since Pascal Siakam was traded, but we're really like fewer than 20 games into Scottie being the guy for this team. And we're still learning a lot. We've had a lot of fits and starts and stops along the way. Another delay, that to me is sort of the biggest hit here, is a delay in getting more of that valuable info of what does this team need around Scottie Barnes going into what is going to be his max extension starting a year from now.
Yes.
Hell yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. You got me there. We'll come back on the other side. We will get into Ochai Agbaji getting his option picked up, which is an interesting development. Maybe not something we thought was super likely in the summertime, but man, oh man, has he had a really encouraging start to this year. We will get into that, what it means, Ochai's development, and more coming up in just one sec. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time, the single best place to buy tickets for the sporting events that you want to go to. It's a wonderful app. I use it all the time. It's frankly the only place I buy tickets anymore because I know I'm getting the best price because they have the lowest price guarantee. That's right. If you find tickets in the same row and section for less somewhere else, Game Time will credit you with 110% of the difference. So just go to Game Time. They're not going to offer that if they don't know they have the lowest deals. So go find the seats you want to get for the games you want to go to. The Raptors have two big games this weekend. LeBron's in town with the Lakers on Friday, and then the Sacramento Kings for Vince Carter night on Saturday. Very exciting times. It might be the time to go score some tickets. I've been perusing a little bit. Not that I'm going to games as a fan this season, but they are pretty affordable compared to what they have been in years past. Maybe you go find some tickets for cheap over at Game Time. You can get $20 off those tickets as well. You can take the guesswork out of buying those tickets with Game Time and download the Game Time app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA, LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Back at it here with Katie Heindl as we continue taking a look here at the news and notes from the Toronto Raptors on an off day, a busy off day for the Raptors with injury news and contractual news. Katie, everyone's favorite cat minutia, Ochai Agbaji, along with Grady Dick, had their options for their next seasons on their rookie deals picked up. It's the third-year option for Grady Dick, the fourth-year option, the final year of his rookie deal for Ochai Agbaji, who has had quite a glow up, I would say, over the course of the preseason into the start of the regular season. He has, I've talked about it a little bit. I talked about it in the newsletter on Monday. Subscribe to the newsletter, okay? Lots of great stuff in there, damn it. I talked about it, just kind of the revamping of Ochai Agbaji's shot chart, the sort of reimagining of the way he can affect basketball games. The stat that really pops to me, Katie, is during his time in Utah, he took 58% of all of his shots from three-point range. That is down to 32% this season, about 37% in his total time with the Raptors. He has completely become a rim scoring machine. He shoots like 68% at the rim. He gets to the rim a whole lot. In fact, Katie, no player in his player cohort, like wing types, on cleaning the glass has a higher rim frequency than Ochai Agbaji. 58% of his looks have come at the rim, and the results are speaking for themselves. He's scoring, he's finishing, he is rebounding like a maniac, 2.5 offensive boards a game, which has been a big part of the Raptors being the best rebounding team in basketball to start the season. Lots of really good stuff from Ochai Agbaji here. I'm glad he got that option picked up. There seems to be a rotation player here that the Raptors have uncovered. What have your early impressions of Agbaji been? The sort of, you saw him in Summer League. We talked about it. It did not look good, Katie, but it seems like they've kind of found a way to optimize him just by asking him to do the things that he's good at.
Yeah, I think that's why initially I'm not going to get too high or too low. It's obviously a great sign that he had his option picked up, and I think how he started the season looks so promising. And I think the more difficult thing, you touched on it, is breaking these sort of habits that athletes get into. Nice giant mug. What do people call those? Emotional support mugs?
Emotional support cups. Yeah.
I will say I could easily tell who was an American abroad because they had Stanleys. Why do you need that? Anyway, not at home.
Hydration's important, Katie. It's the new wave.
It is important, but not that way. So anyway, I think
hopefully Stanley does not want to sponsor the podcast.
Yeah,
we'll take your money, but carry on.
Not your cups.
I like jet lag, Katie. This is fun.
but fingers crossed for our listeners. Anyway, it's hard. It's difficult to break habits like that. It's difficult to kind of disrupt yourself, especially in the flow of a game, especially when you're a younger player and you maybe fall back into offensive habits, be them good or bad. So it's been pretty cool to see him kind of switch his style up like that, and it makes me feel like it alludes to the things that he was working on over the summer with the team. I didn't necessarily see so much of that at Summer League, but again, like it's such a chaotic environment that it's not really the time to bust out and finesse these new skills that you're working on. So yeah, like in what we touched on earlier, I do think this potential window, if Scottie Barnes is going to be out for a little while, is also a great opportunity for somebody like Ochai to step up and kind of utilize those new skills. But I mean, it's cool to see. I was really rooting for him and am still rooting for him, and I had a feeling he could pull something together. So this is great.
An extremely easy guy to root for sure. And really glad that they seem to have found like a niche for him within this team. And frankly, that niche seems to be when RJ Barrett's off the floor, just do the stuff RJ Barrett does. Which, and again, this has been a thing again, multiple times this season. Ochai Agbaji has scored buckets that if you didn't know any better, you would say, hey, there's RJ Barrett doing something with his right hand. That's interesting. There was a couple sequences in that game against the Nuggets, right? You had that RJ Barrett dunk where he comes out of the timeout. They do the little pitch play for him. He gets downhill and yams with the left hand. In that same game, the exact same sequence happened for Agbaji, just going to the right where they have a little pitch play to him. He goes and takes that and launches himself towards the rim. And he didn't dunk it, but he had like a nice dexterous finish. Like the finishing's been awesome from him. Not all of this is going to sustain, right? He's not going to shoot 65% on twos all season long. One would think that's a really hard thing for big men to do, let alone 6'5" wings. But I think the sort of bar he set for himself early this season, where he's been hanging out like for moments like north of 70% true shooting. I think right now he's at high 60. Even if there's some drop off from the 3-point shooting department where he's at 45% right now, that's probably going to come back down closer to his career averages. He's only shooting from the corners, which is the place where he's had success in his career. So they seem to have streamlined that as well and just said, hey, don't worry about above the break stuff. When you're above the break, you drive, you slash, you cut, and in the corners, fire away from three. Even if that falls down a little bit, even if the twos come a little bit down, although his like at rim percentage right now is very much in line with his career at rim percentage, there's still a viable rotation player here, even if there is more of a coming back to earth for some of these numbers that are kind of popping off. And then you couple that with some really nice defense, a steal and a half a game, a half a block like that. That's again, it's only 4 games. We're still like in tiny sample zone and will be for a while here, but we can only go on what we've seen. And you take it back to the preseason where Ochai had some really nice performances as well. And I think you got to feel good about the Raptors picking up that option. He's only going to make $6.5 million next year or so. If he's doing what he's doing right now, that is absolutely a deal you can work with on your books in this world where we have to worry about all the deals on the books. It's very fun. Do you have is this the Ochai Agbaji trade now? They got Kelly Olynyk. Obviously, we haven't seen him yet. But the 29th pick for Agbaji, if he's playing like this, plus Kelly, it feels like the Raptors were kind of on the money with the whole, we can turn this guy into something second draft play with him. Is this the Ochai Agbaji trade officially in canon?
Yeah, though that trade goes down for me as being in the presser when he came in for the first time in a cutoff t-shirt in the middle of winter, and me being like, this guy has the biggest arms I've ever seen. And he wanted us to see them, so I respect that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. The last thing I'll say about it is I think his size, which you touched on, and his general strength is going to be such a good, like, we haven't really seen it in like true good action yet, because again, somebody like Jokic, it just doesn't matter. Like he can just minimize anybody of any size. But I think, the Lakers game coming up with like LeBron and Anthony Davis, it will be a good measuring stick of like how he can sort of wield that strength up close. I'm sort of curious to see it. You touched on the steals and kind of the deflections and the rebounding as well. So I think size this year, if we're going to lack shooting for the first part of the season, maybe, hopefully not for too long with injuries, size can help to bridge that gap.
Totally. I mean, they are the number 1 rebounding team in basketball in large part. Jakob Poeltl's been doing incredible work on that end, but, it's not just him. And having Ochai grabbing nearly 6 boards a game, playing at the 2 or the 3 is certainly helping with that. 2.5 offensive rebounds a game for him. Like, again, found a thing he's good at, had him do it. Like, this is Darko Rajakovic. Maybe we should just start giving the Raptors coaching staff the benefit of the doubt when they get sort of a moldable guy who maybe hasn't quite fit in somewhere. Like, they seem to be able to optimize these guys. They have a pretty good track record in just a year and a bit of taking a player and saying, hey, this isn't working. Maybe you try this. And all of a sudden, things start to fall into place. It's a pretty exciting place to be. We're going to come back on the other side, Katie, and just get into the general vibes of it all, right? We're a week into the season. We can kind of take stock of things just a tad, where things sit. Does the Scottie Barnes thing jeopardize the vibes at all? We will get into that coming up to close out the show. Back at it here with Katie Heindl from Basketball Feelings and the Locked On NBA family of newsletters 4 times a week. Excellent national pieces from Katie in there. It's a very, Katie, I have to say, it's very, very awesome when I open up my newsletter and click on my newsletter to get the clicks and scroll down and see you right beneath me. It's a lovely thing. Locked On Raptors listeners must just be having the time of their lives if they've subscribed. It's very cool. I'm very happy about the whole thing. Katie, early impressions so far. We're a week in. You obviously were in Italy for part of this on vacation, so not maybe diving deep into the nuts and bolts of how things are coming together, but you could pick up a vibe. That Nuggets game on Monday, I think, I'll stand by it. It was one of the single most exciting and fun Raptors games, especially in Toronto, in years, like since the post-COVID era, even including that 48-win kind of bizarro season where, there was lots of fun stuff going on that year, but there was a different kind of energy last night where the crowd was Monday night, where the crowd was full, crowd was energetic. There was a really compelling game happening with a team that has like an insanely high give a crap meter, which is always a fun thing and a thing that's going to make things entertaining. How are you feeling? A week in, have you sort of had your opinions shifted at all on what you think this season can hold in store? Or is this about in line with what you expected with a team that finally declared its direction and came in with a whole bunch of rookies and young guys looking to prove something?
Well, admittedly, because I fell asleep on Monday at 7 p.m., so it's a good thing I did not go to the game as I had planned on going, because I would have been asleep in the media seats. I did go back first thing and look at your feed, because you're a very good barometer for not take this the right way, not overreacting, but like being a positive read on what could have been a negative situation.
Because I have my corner, Katie.
Yeah.
I have my corner, and I'm staying on it until I die.
Because I knew the Nuggets were going to play desperate, and I wondered about how that game would be a good barometer for the Raptors, basically, against a really desperate and still very good team. And I think they showed really like their kind of guts and their wiles about them. They didn't really come apart. They didn't look too stressed. The Scottie injury, of course, is going to throw a huge wrench in things. But where you would normally see a group, especially like a young group like this, potentially fall apart under pressure, they didn't, and they really seemed to, they pushed this into overtime, and they really seemed to hold their ground. I really like that. I like weird wins. I like strange ways to figure out how to win. And I think they're pretty primed to do that this season. And yes, to your point, I think it really helps to be declarative about the direction and to pick a direction. And though we had Masai Ujiri saying, yeah, maybe we're in a rebuilding process, but I don't need the players to think about it like that. They have one job, and their job is to be competitive. And I think that differentiation was really important, because there's no one that's like, okay, guys, we're rebuilding, so you can just kind of whiff it, right? Like you can just go out there every night and if the game turns south, like that's not a reason to try and chase after it. You can see that they're really, I don't know, at this point in time, they've got their feet on the gas. And I think it does really bode well for the season. I think they do seem like they're going to be quite a lot of fun.
It also seems like they like each other, which is great. Like,
That
and
helps.
there's just like and there's like a connectivity to it all. And even, there was something that popped out in that game against the Nuggets. Yes, they blew a 10-point lead with like 2 minutes left. I think it's largely due to Scottie Barnes going out. Again, I watched back that last 2 minutes. I didn't feel like, yes, there were a couple missed free throws and some, bad offensive possessions, I think mostly tied to not having Scottie. But a lot of that was, holy God, Nikola Jokic is a freak and hits everything. And the 2-man game with him and Murray, still good despite everyone trying to bury that team early in the season. You lose games to teams like that when you're a team like the Raptors are. And I didn't find it to be like an utter nasty collapse the way maybe some were painting it. I do think there was a moment in that game where Davion Mitchell made a really nice play. I think he got a deflection or a block on Nikola Jokic. And then, just kind of a random happenstance happened. Aaron Gordon collects loose ball and scores. And Mitchell's dejected. He's walking off to the wing. And RJ Barrett calls him back, Davion. And they all kind of huddle together. And you can visibly see, you did the right thing. That was you did the right thing. That was good. There's just again, it seems like they're all playing for one another, which is corny. Oh, they're playing for one another. It's all love. But this matters. It's a team sport. You hang out with each other for 6 months a year. If you don't like each other, that's going to bleed into the on-court product. And it seems like they like each other. It seems like they're invested in each other getting better, which is all you can ask for from a young team. And they really, again, the give a crap meter is very high. They try extremely hard. They play super hard. They play to the whistle, all that stuff that coaches love. And, the analytics types that doesn't matter. It meets in the middle somewhere. And yeah, the sort of overall talent, the shooting efficiency, all of that's not quite there maybe right now, but they've got the part down, which is the sort of remembering it's a team sport and acting as such. It's an underrated part of being an effective basketball team. And I think some of the teams you alluded to that are in more dire straits, your Milwaukee Bucks your Indiana Pacers your whatever teams that are having, struggles out of the gate here, you're seeing the sort of fractious nature of those team dynamics and how that can kind of pour gas on the flame, as it were, and make things even worse. Katie, I have to ask you, we're in a season now, a lot of new faces, a lot of new guys. I remember distinctly way back in 2016, you coming on this podcast when we were young whippersnappers and, professing your love for one Fred VanVleet very early on. You were dead on. It hit. That's it's so fun when you latch onto a guy early who sticks around for a while. I had this. Pascal Siakam was one of my guys as well. Do you have any guys yet? Have you latched onto someone that you're super duper invested in? Is it just as simple as the other short point guard who wears 23 and plays real hard in Jamal Shed? Or is there someone else here yeah, that guy, I'm feeling it with this guy. I'm invested. He's one of my dudes.
Quickly out of the gate, but because of what's, not seeing him as much, and frankly, not seeing as many games as I need to figure this out, I'm gonna need some time. So I'll take this answer. Maybe you can give me 2 weeks and we can return to it and I can make my prediction.
I'm happy to do that. I'm having a hard time not just saying all of them are my guys.
Yeah.
They all rock. They're all super fun. I think for me, it's Jonathan Mobo, who that game against the Sixers Friday, if you haven't seen it, Katie, go back, check it out. It's I'm having a hard time thinking about a rookie sort of early season performance that captured the imagination. Obviously Scottie Barnes had a couple early performances in his rookie season. That's a different thing. He was the 4th overall pick. You kind of expect that. But Jonathan Mobo, 31st pick, coming in his second game, putting up 12, 9, 5, 2, and 3, and a plus 21 and a win. Pretty awesome stuff. I'm mobile pilled for sure. I have a type. Athletic, kind of toolsy guys who do everything except shoot. That's for me. I'm in. So yeah, I'm enjoying the Mobo experience so far for sure. Katie, before we get out of here, we should take a second to tell people a little bit more about the Locked On newsletters. You are a big part of this. You are our national editor. We haven't really had you on the show since this all was announced because you've been having a wonderful time scaling Mount Etna. But let us know, Katie, sort of what can people know and expect from you on the newsletter side of things, and why should people be subscribing, not just to the Locked On Raptors newsletter, but to all of the team-specific ones?
I mean, that's a lot of newsletters, but you should definitely subscribe to, if you listen to this podcast, you should subscribe to the Toronto Raptors iteration of the newsletter, wherein you get Sean. And as Sean said, you get me 4 days a week. The other day of the week, Thursdays, you get Mike Shearer of the Basketball Poetry Substack, who likes to break things down a little bit more analytically. He likes to run through plays, but he does it in a very, if you're not such a big fan of those things, if you are, you're going to love it. If you're not, you're still going to really enjoy it because of the way that he does it. The fact that his Substack's called Basketball Poetry is a pretty good indicator of why. And then in terms of the national stories, like if you are familiar with my writing, if you read Basketball Feelings, they are in that same vein, though they're shorter. So they're a bit more
Word
concise.
caps.
Yeah, word caps. But it's a look around the league, right? Like it's a look at things that sometimes it's like, yeah, I'll go really granular on a player or maybe, an event of the day. Like today, for example, I wrote about Rudy Gay's retirement and I went back a little bit and, talked about what is it when someone has a career that maybe they admit that wasn't really what they wanted, and how does that come down to timing, and basically how important timing is in the grand scheme of something like the NBA. So those kinds of things, I guess, are reprieves from, you get like your team. I'm not doing a terrible job of selling this.
No, it's great.
Aside, but you get your concentrated team story. So for hosts like you, Sean, who are taking the time to write original stories every day, sometimes those will be recaps of the podcast and things you can look forward to. Sometimes those are actually just your succinct thoughts about the team that you're covering.
You're good. Keep pushing through.
And then once you get through that, you get the national story. And if you play fantasy, which I don't anymore because I always forget to put guys in every single day. But if you do,
sorry to Locked On Raptors League Commissioner Cause, don't yell at me.
Josh Lloyd is in there and he is giving you very succinct and just like very bite-sized, easy kind of pieces. So if like you don't have time to listen to a whole fantasy podcast, that's another reason to subscribe to the newsletter because you can get that information right there. And we also have links. So a big part of my role is also curating kind of these league-wide links, right? And national stories. Sometimes they have to do with like very newsy items. And in case in point, like yesterday, the Ringer's Tyler Parker went to the Intuit Dome and tried out the new toilets that James Dolan, not James Dolan. He does seem like a toilet guy. Yeah, Steve Ballmer.
Yeah.
is so fond of saying that the new arena has so many of. So he went basically on this investigative story and wrote about it. So I'm pulling those.
Baby.
Yeah, I'm pulling those national links. There are also team specific links depending on the region that you've just subscribed in. So, all in all, this is not a succinct summary, but the newsletter is. And if you like to listen to more than one Locked On podcast, then you could subscribe to more than one Locked On newsletter.
Absolutely. That was a great pitch, Katie.
And it's free.
You never it's free. It costs zero money.
Nothing is paywalled. Yeah.
It's pretty great. Go support it. It's much appreciated when you do, Katie. Usually I have to be your hype person on the show, but you've done a good job. You seem to not think you did, but you did a great job outlining why everyone should go and subscribe to these things. They're very good. I got original writing there 5 days a week, talking all kinds of stuff in my usual, positive spin, sounding like a moron way. It's great. So please go and subscribe. Katie, please edit me, and we will be back again on Thursday to talk about Raptors Hornets. Hopefully not a shellacking, as the Raptors are without their two best offensive creative players, but we'll see. The Hornets, they don't have their stuff together necessarily. We will break that all down tomorrow, and then Friday we've got Toxic Positivity Friday back by popular demand to close out the week. Thanks so much for hanging out. Please support, follow, subscribe, rate, review, tell a friend, newsletter, do the thing. We'll talk to you Thursday. Thanks for hanging. Bye-bye. Damn it.